Picture this, right? You have something that is significantly cheaper than cable television and you get to watch so much content you won't know what to do with yourself. All you need to do is download it to your phone, TV, tablet of choice, whatever you use to watch content. You're enjoying yourself and having a great time. But now you want to watch something else. It's not on the service you're currently using. After several attempts of searching for the show or movie you want, you're now saddened to see that it really is not on the streaming service you have. But you're okay because it's on another streaming service, so you download that and get to watching. Now we're happy again. And we're only 2 free trials deep into streaming services. Life is pretty good. But then you want to watch something more and it's not on either the streaming services you have, but you see that it's an exclusive to a different service. And now we're in a cycle. Streaming is a continuous cycle of consumption that was predicated on the principle of convenience. And remember that word because it's really important to this entire tale of streaming. We all want convenience, no ads. We just get straight to the content and we're all happy. At least we were until time went on and streaming became a different beast altogether. One that no one could have predicted that it could ever turn into. And why is that? And we'll answer that question in just a sec, but before we do, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Alright, on with the video. Streaming in its inception was just the next step in the evolution of content and how we consume it. Ad-less content, for the most part, without any of the hassle. All in one place. And how can we pass up that? I mean, $7.99 for a Netflix subscription back in 2011, $8 a month for streaming. It sounds like a great deal. And it is. I get all this content for only $8 a month. I might as well throw out the cable box as we speak. But some time passes and now it's 2013 and we have an added tier to Netflix. Oh, that's interesting, we're getting tiers now. We have a standard plan and another standard plan, but this one is ad-free. Well, that's cool, and that doesn't seem like it's too much. And this is something we told ourselves in the beginning until it became too much. There are so many streaming services right now, it has essentially became cable 2.0. Streaming services have multiple tiers and the companies behind them know the consumer will pay for these because of convenience. Those ads will annoy you, especially seeing as a lot of the time it's badly placed, so you'll get hit with an ad in a very awkward point in the movie.
Pilot? What's a pilot?
Well, you know the show's on TV?
I don't watch.
Nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday.
The tiers of streaming are really funny because it's very reminiscent of the cable packages we used to slang to our parents back in the day. And we know we had to butter them up to get the package that had all the movie channels as well. That was mandatory. But in the effort of trying to save money because cable is too expensive, we have now run to streaming where everything is spread across so many platforms it's like paying for cable all over again. In the beginning, there weren't that many platforms, but TV providers, media companies, film companies, and the like, everyone wants to get a piece of that streaming pie at the cost of our pockets. There are so many streaming services out there that we've lost count of the ones that we have until you get that notification on your phone that Apple is mysteriously taking out $7.99 every month, and you not remembering you have the iTunes subscription to pay for. It's getting out of hand. And speaking of getting out of hand, you know what's really out of hand? This is one of the more egregious things that streaming has ever done. So you know how you click on your streaming service in search of something very specific and you end up finding it, you're all hyped and you press it and it says, whoops, you need a Star subscription in order to watch this. That right there, that is insane to me. I'm already paying X amount of money for the streaming service of my choice here, and you're telling me I have to go within that streaming service into another streaming service to watch what I want to watch on the streaming service I first went into? That's insane to me. I'm essentially getting streaming service DLC in my streaming service. You could actually run yourself into an infinite loop of getting services because you can pretty much just keep finding movies you can't watch and then find a place where you can watch it. With the constant price hikes of these services, it gets to a point where it gets ridiculous. I'm paying for content that is essentially right there but is behind another paywall. A platform that does this worse is Prime Video has to get a section off the strength of it being such a bad service when it has genuinely zero right to be bad. Amazon Prime Video is one of the worst platforms to navigate around the UI. It's only really useful if you already know what you're about to watch, but if you don't, prepare for some of the most insufferable scrolling you have to subject yourself to. Prime Video has Amazon money. Let's do a quick search on how much Amazon is worth. Okay, let's see. Ah, yes. $2.38 trillion, but yet I look at Prime Video and the UI is buns. Netflix, which has significantly less money than Amazon, has an infinitely better and easier UI to navigate than Prime Video. It should be the other way around. Prime Video is funny because you see how I mentioned before that some services have you pay for an additional service to watch a movie or a show or whatever else? Prime does this, which is funnier because not only do I have to pay for the subscription in itself, bundled with that, I have to pay an additional $3 so that I don't get ads when before Prime Video used to have no ads. It's like, damn, how much more money is gonna get siphoned away from me? It's getting absurd. But the thing that's more egregious than Prime Video is the fact that streaming just has us waiting and waiting and waiting for This point has to point a finger at ourselves for a second, but binge culture is just nasty. And it's not the way to consume media either. The business model that Netflix propagated for several years and had other platforms following suit until a slow pushback happening over these past couple of years going back to weekly content, but only slowly. Production companies will produce shows for years to then drop 8 or even 6 episodes on us all at once, to which the average consumer barrels through as soon as it hits 12 AM for when that release drops. 7 AM will come and the consumer goes, where's that season 2 though? And this becomes more than one person. It becomes thousands and thousands into millions of people asking for season 2 when season 1 has only been around for 8 hours. This has now turned content into fast food. Not because the quality is bad, and yes, there are a ton of content that aren't remotely good, but the problem lies with even the excellent content is just consumed and that's it. Now, of course, no one is saying they need to talk about shows for a year onward, but the fact that a show will drop, you binge all the episodes, and within a week you've already forgotten about that show and have moved on to the next one, shows don't get a chance to breathe anymore. It's just funneling show after show onto these platforms for rapid consumption, and it's, what more do you have for me? There are multiple reasons for why the binge culture model can't sustain itself even for the future. Reason 1 being constant content. Because your show has no breathing room, you're being hounded for a new season immediately. And because companies don't want the hype and the fan base to dissipate as time goes on, they need to get right back on the production and start pumping out episodes. To which, might I add, may not even be of the best quality, but is being produced because the consumer needs another season. So regardless of the quality being there, it has to be done, and if it's bad, the consumer will go, damn, why is the season so bad? Because you asked for it to be made now. Because you scarf down the show and don't have a concept of time, you want more content to be handed to you. But for as much of the blame the consumer has to play in this, Netflix has to be blamed more and then some. They've created a culture that was going to end up becoming this in the future. A culture where it keeps eating itself and they can't stop. In the effort to fully go against cable, they didn't want us waiting week to week for episodes and instead have made something that made it even more of a hassle for your favorite show to come out. Reason 2, content can't be as big as it used to be. I think it's insane that Stranger Things is one of the biggest shows in the world, right? But it'd be even bigger if it released week to week. The week to week model still works wonders for content. You're able to build discussion for it. You get to anticipate the day it comes out and how hyped you'll be. It's something that makes you more engaged with the show that you're watching. Especially if they hit you with a clean cliffhanger. You want that week to go by so fast that you want to get to the next episode. That's the feeling that weekly television brings that binge culture brought on by streaming can't give you. This affects the impact of shows. Like I said before, you'll still get great shows that all release at one time, but the impact of the show takes a hit. Take The Sopranos for example. This was regarded as the pinnacle of television at one point. Can you imagine The Sopranos, which had 13 episodes in season 1, all dropped at one time? That don't even sound right. A show that generational with having essentially a flash in the pan season is ludicrous, and that's one of the many effects of streaming. If the model was fully reverted back, these shows wouldn't have to be burdened by viewers insisting at the rate they've been going at to keep harping at studios to release a new season of a show. It also doesn't help that it takes longer for shows to come out. 3 or more years for the heavy hitters, and they release with 8 or so episodes and then they're gone again. People have been voicing how crazy it is that everyone has to wait several years for a less than 10 episode season, and once again, because people binge it all, it's here today and gone in a couple hours. The system is just gonna keep making viewers more and more upset as time goes on.
What the f is this piece of shit?
Child actors are damn near old enough to go into clubs because the seasons take so long. And I'm not a person that harps on studios to release something immediately. I just find something else to watch in the meantime, and by the time I've watched a bunch of shows, my old favorite is back with more content, so I'm fine, but the whole binge aspect of watching TV is just not viable for viewers in the future. Shows don't feel like the cultural events that they used to be, and they can't be because of how streaming has it. Cliffhangers, which are a TV staple that gets you to come back week after week, doesn't have that same effect anymore because it goes like this. Damn, that was a great episode, and what a cliffhanger. Good thing I have the next 9 episodes to watch so I don't have to go anywhere. And someone would say, I don't understand what the problem is. You're getting all of what you love in one go. And that right there is the issue. I essentially don't have the excitement I would have had it dropped weekly as it is all at once right now. You know how less impactful Attack on Titan would have been if they released all the episodes at once? Same with X-Men 97. People were fiending for episodes of X-Men 97 week after week. The model still works. Now I'm gonna pivot to another gripe of streaming services, and this is one of the earliest complaints of it, and it's getting even worse now. Don't you love when you're watching a show or that movie you've been dying to see is on there, so you take the time to sit down and watch it, and now all of a sudden, for some reason, the show or movie you watched just got... The phrase, "they took it off Netflix," has been echoed as many times as a person can remember. A phrase so tried and true, and unfortunately it makes you go... This isn't a Netflix only problem, but they are one of the biggest offenders of doing this though. You're invested in the show, loving the cast, the show is written extremely well, and it's canceled. The show won't be renewed for another season, it's just staying dead and buried. Then you look around and see, this show sucks, but this one is set to have a 3rd season, and the 4th, 5th, and 6th seasons got greenlit? That was people's reaction whenever Big Mouth got another season, but that's more of an internet thing. Anyway, It gets difficult for people to enjoy viewing of shows because as soon as you get invested in one, it gets canned and now you're back to finding something else to watch. But this has become more of a trend in recent years, with Netflix canceling 16 shows in 2024, 14 shows were canceled in 2023, and a staggering 20 shows were canceled in 2022. It's become a running gag at this point of Netflix canceling shows. And while Netflix is over here doing that, we have to pivot over to HBO Max. Or Max. Oh, it's HBO Max again? Huh. So HBO Go now to the Max is under a ton of scrutiny from people because they just nuked all the cartoons off their service. You know, the cartoons that they all own. So everyone's rightfully confused because this was their one way of watching these classics, which a good portion of people got HBO Max in the first place was to watch old cartoons. Now they can't do that because the service they paid for just removed it unbeknownst to anyone. This isn't to say that everything that's made under the Netflix or any platform's umbrella necessarily needs to keep going just because it was made, but damn, double-digit numbers for cancellations is pretty wild. It's like you expect it to happen at this point. It's the quantity over quality mentality that's had at Netflix as to why we have this system. They constantly pump out shows regardless of the quality just so that viewers have something to watch, and then they pull the plug after. And at times, the good shows are also roped into that as well, so it's an unfortunate system that's in place. And speaking of more unfortunate situations, we also have As we all know, there was a pretty important writer's strike that occurred back in 2023. Writers were demanding a fair wage for the work they were putting in, some good job security, and for companies to not rely on AI usage instead of human beings who could do the work. Because of how streaming works, writers would be employed for fewer weeks and they essentially wouldn't be able to make a living off of what they love to do. So now, instead of how it used to be when if you worked on television 20 or so years ago, you worked on shows that were in syndication, which means that the show that you were working on would be leased and sent off to numerous different broadcast stations instead of it just being on one, so that you can maximize an audience growth, which then meant that the producers would be paid very well for their show. With streaming, that's no longer a thing, so while the seasons are significantly shorter than how it used to be years ago with 20 plus episode seasons, writers wouldn't be making nearly as much if their shows were syndicated, which low-key forced writers to have to get other jobs to keep them afloat instead of the one show that they were working on doing the heavy lifting. Of course, we have to factor in places like New York and Los Angeles where a lot of content is produced and developed there, and for anyone that's lived in either place knows that the cost of living is pretty high and those jobs at the time weren't paying people enough to live there, and instead of trying to give writers their just due and give them an affordable wage, they just lay you off and tell you to fend for yourself. The strike lasted for almost 5 months, which I was a part of, by the way. That was something that affected so many people, and it's awful that this was such a widespread issue that companies were not trying to budge on. They wanted to play the waiting game. Of course, the strike has been over for a couple years now, and the Writers Guild and execs were able to reach an agreement, but this is yet another problem that was propped up because of streaming. Streaming also doesn't just only hurt creatives either, they hurt something we all love, and that's the old-fashioned, the tried and true. The war between streaming and movie theaters has been going on for quite a while, and this is another multifaceted issue. Like, let me ask you guys a question. When you all saw movies that were coming out, how often would you see this movie is now available on streaming today? And you're sat there wondering like, wait, did this movie come out like a week ago? That's been happening more and more. Movies that don't do well at the box office, good or bad, get hit with the straight to streaming treatment, which the average person will now think, well, why would I go to the movies when the movie would just be on my streaming service of choice in just a couple of weeks? So now there's no incentive for people to head to the theater to go watch a movie. Me? A man like me? I'm going to that theater. Nothing beats the theater experience and seeing the movies the way it was intended, but I'm just one person. For other people, they don't care about that, and they're seeing it from the cost effectiveness side of things. Not to get into dire things, but movie theaters have been shutting down at an alarming rate. No one wants theaters to disappear, but streaming isn't helping that case whatsoever. The fact that we're effectively losing the going to the movies as an experience mentality is really sad because this was something that everyone did by and large. Grabbed a group of your friends, family, or whoever, and you were out to the movies. Some movies perform well at the box office regardless of streaming, but it does hurt its earning potential at the box office because it's on a streaming platform. It's really upsetting because people will then think it was sent to streaming so soon because the quality of the movie is bad, which isn't true at times, but that's just how things work. But things like movie theaters disappearing, that's not the only thing that's disappearing either. I mentioned before how shows have been removed for one reason or no reason at all. This is another big issue that streaming has, is that you don't necessarily own anything. You're essentially paying for the right to play these things of content, but once it's gone, that's it. Say you get a 4K Blu-ray and a digital copy of said movie comes with it. That digital copy of said movie can be here today and gone tomorrow, and there's not a single thing you could do about it. Christopher Nolan made mention of that same instance. When Oppenheimer was being screened, he said that it's important to own the film on Blu-ray so that no evil streaming service can come steal it from you. He was saying this jokingly, but he did add that there's an actual concern of these streaming services taking away our content. Another GOAT, Guillermo del Toro, added to this point by saying, physical media is almost a Fahrenheit 451 level of responsibility. If you own a great 4K HD, Blu-ray, DVD, etc. of a film or films you love, you are the custodian of those films for generations to come. Which is true. These services on the drop of the dime decide what you own, quote unquote, isn't there anymore. Unless you come to my house and physically take my movies from me, there's no way I'll lose it. There's a ton of pushback now about the preservation of physical media now more than ever after people have been witnessing the long-term effects of streaming content. And I do have to point the finger at the consumer once again. Now, I've worked at Best Buy before and the Blu-ray section was always filled, but the problem is no one was really buying Blu-rays like that. Fast forward some years later and I go back to that same Best Buy as a customer, and those same Blu-rays that were there back when I was working years ago are still there. And when they announced that Best Buys are removing Blu-rays from these stores, people got up in arms over it. But the people weren't buying the Blu-rays. I did my part and bought some because that was one of the best things of going into a Best Buy was going through the Blu-ray section, but people weren't buying them, and now people are mad that it's gone, but not enough of them are buying the Blu-rays. And why is all of this happening? Because of one word, a word that we made ourselves familiar with for the whole video, and that is... This all became the behemoth that it is now because we all valued our convenience. No one could have predicted that things would turn out this way at all. I mean, how could you? When these things were starting out, there weren't that many and it was fine because you could watch as much as you wanted on a handful of services. Hulu when it started out was free. Do you guys remember that? Free 99. We used to be a civilized nation. I even talked with friends about how streaming is so large now and it's blossoming into what it is, all because we just wanted things to be convenient for us. Like a lot of things, what started out as a great thing has now become something that doesn't even benefit the companies or the people that work for them anymore. This isn't to say abolish streaming as a whole, but there needs to be a better way of how it's being used. They need to dial some things back in order for them to be able to not overwork themselves, and us as the audience are able to enjoy the content at a nicer pace than just having it shoved in our faces. Don't hit us with price hikes and then remove the content we actually want to watch. Stop having us go to another streaming service within a streaming service to watch content. Stop canceling shows people actually want to watch. Make better user interfaces. Stop having us pay additional money for ads when we didn't have to do that before. Actually build the service around what people are interested in over what the suits are thinking. Release episodes week to week. Give those writers more to do so they can make their money. Make the actual service worth the money. Because as it stands, the people don't feel like it is, and that needs to change. This was something I wanted to talk about for a while. This video was just sitting in my notes for ages, and I'm glad I actually sat on the idea because the is getting crazy now, and it's just wild to see how everything is. Streaming is 100% negatively impacting entertainment, and we do have to share some of the blame in that too, but companies need to realize this is something that needs to change, and now. It's messing with way too many facets of entertainment and screwing over artists at large. But I'm done rambling. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Do you guys like streaming? Do you have a complicated relationship with it like I do? Am I annoying for even talking about this? Let me know how you feel, and I'll be seeing you all next time.